Hello, brothers. Let's discuss cheating today. I think this is a very important topic, extremely wide. I've been just thinking about it here and there for the past a few weeks actually. So I decided to make a whole video about cheating, mostly about from the viewpoint of morality and how the current modern dating framework sets out the new morality. It's the new morale. Yeah, that's the whole new freaking morale that I actually haven't seen this discussed in any of the other manosphere channel videos, because I do monitor a lot of pretty much the main manosphere channels. I watch the Better Bachelor, the Legion of Man, Rollo Tomasi. Well, you name them, pretty much all of them. I don't really pay attention to the ones that just sort of sit there and just review and comment on some stupid TikTok videos. That's a whole different genre, because I think it's actually much easier to be just sitting and sort of discuss, and I mean just reviewing the stupid TikTok videos. So what this particular female said and that one just said. I mean I don't have time to be reviewing and commenting on every female's TikTok video, right? Because it's an endless freaking content, and it's a specific genre, and there's so many channels covering them. That's not what this channel is for. Okay, here we're going to be discussing stuff from the viewpoints of logic, morality, law, and the sense of just rationale, right? So that then you could form your patterns of behavior in a rightful way, and you won't be feeling bad about yourself. And that actually includes cheating. But that includes cheating big time, because cheating is such a wide topic, and all of the other channels, when you hear what they say, they don't have this complex sort of discussion. They just, hoes ain't loyal and all that. Well, we do get it, okay. Men are not loyal too, but that's not even the point. Most people cheat, okay? Well, I actually asked ChatGPT. It says that less than 50% of spouses cheat, both women and men. But I mean, then again, how honest were people when they were given this survey, right? I mean, come on, I mean, I feel like the majority of people in current times, in this deranged freaking world filled with so much degeneracy, you'd think people don't the majority of people don't cheat at least once. I mean, if the majority of men cheat, I'm pretty sure then the majority of women cheat too, because who would the man be cheating with? Especially imagine if you are in your 40s, would you and you're you are cheating on your wife. So are you cheating with a 20-year-old? The likelihood is pretty freaking slim. You're probably cheating with another married female she is in her turn cheating on her husband. That's the case. So at least if men probably cheat more, maybe 20-30% more, but it doesn't even matter. At this point, it doesn't even matter, and I will explain why. So cheating is bad. We all do know that. It's kind of a conventional agreement that cheating is generally bad. But we live in a deranged world, and you can't be Jesus living in a brothel. It's not feasible. It doesn't make sense. Why don't you leave the brothel? But how would you do it? Then you would have to go to Mars, and Elon Musk hasn't prepared the freaking rocket yet. Okay, so cheating. So we've figured out that most people cheat, and most men in particular. Yeah, the question is not even whether most people cheat or not. That's not even the question, because we're not going to be discussing whether cheating how do we get rid of the cheating. You will not get rid unless you criminally penalize cheating. It's not going to happen, because the moment you start talking about this criminal penalties and all that, you will get bashed and labeled, that guy is medieval and all of he hates women. Immediately it becomes a topic of misogyny. They won't even care that men also will be criminally punished, like in the latest instance where where, you know, where you saw in the news when in Afghanistan, basically the Taliban, where they, some news, you know, pop up from time to time where the Taliban, they stone women for promiscuity, like for cheating on their husbands and stuff. But they won't even tell you that they stone men too. Yeah, because they don't care about men. It's just, oh yeah, because it doesn't really fit their narrative to that you have that as well. But then they also don't care about men's lives. When men die, it's just statistics. When a woman dies, it's a tragedy. Okay, like now in the Ukraine, almost like up to 1 million men cumulatively from both sides died. Okay, it's just stats. We see that if one woman dies, they show her on the video in the reports, that because the lives of women are way more important. There is no equality when it comes to that. And feminists won't, they don't even, they I don't even think they oppose this, right? Because feminists are not really pro equality, they are pro privilege. But that's not the point. I digress. Anyway, nowadays, cheating for men is it's okay. It's, you have the moral right. When it comes to morality, men have the moral rights. And you know why? The main reason for why that is the case is because it was women, the feminists, who were fighting for the freedom of sexual life. Okay? Women, literally, the feminists, they fought, well, they were fighting for their body autonomy, the freedom of women in choosing their spouses and dating, and also all of that led to the freedom of sleeping around before marriage. Well, yeah, they fought for their freedom without realizing that that automatically, by default, that implies man's freedom to sleep around and be promiscuous as well, because those feminists, they gotta be promiscuous with somebody, and if you are not a lesbian, you're gonna be promiscuous with men. So men are free too, right? So women were fighting for that, and that entails that men have the right to cheat because men live in the world where modern dating is set up by feminists, by women. So it was not us, men, it was not us who insisted on this kind of world where there would be promiscuity and men and women would be just doing whatever they want, you know, sleeping around, freedoms, right? Disorderly sexual conduct. It was not the men who are fighting for that. Maybe the so-called alphas, yeah, maybe some of them probably they wanted that because they have the chance to do that. You know, if you have the looks of Henry Cavill, you will probably be wanting that. But that's the tiny minority of men. But then when it comes to women, the majority of women nowadays are feminists. The question is only what kind of a feminist a woman is. If she's first wave, second, or third wave. So it was women who were fighting for this framework that we all abide by today. So we're stripped of the agency. Literally, we men are stripped of the agency. We don't have no say. The world of dating that we are subjected to today, it was all set up, it was all made by women. That's what the premise should be. So that pretty much takes away all of the accountability. Because why? Because once again, as I already said, you don't have to be Jesus in a brothel. And modern women, they want to be living in a freaking brothel. And if you oppose this, you come out as, oh, you know, I'm conservative. Actually, I want people to be accountable for this. I don't want people to be sleeping around. I want to be just marrying to a spouse and then just sharing your bed with your spouse only. Oh, so you got a tiny dick. Oh, he's full of insecurities. Oh, so you hate women. You are misogynist, right? Immediately the responses will be like that. Immediately. Which basically tells you that, yeah, which basically confirms that women are the ones who support this framework. So it's not our responsibility, because the moment you want to change anything, out there in this deranged framework, they are the ones who will start marching in the streets, calling out, oh, those conservative freaking losers, those, oh, they are like, they probably support the Taliban and all of that. So because they do that, because that's their reaction, well, then I'm sorry. The majority of women, they support this framework. So it's their calling. So the responsibility is on them. But the problem now is that among men, because of the Pareto principle, that 20% of men are dating 80% of women, basically, or dating or sleeping around, basically. The 20% of these men are basically the alphas, the top tier, right? The good-looking ones, the Henry Cavills and the Ryan Goslings, right? The others don't really get a lot of action, or maybe no action at all. So now we have to sort of sort out and figure out what the morality and the moral responsibilities and moral rights to cheat are inside the male community, sort of, the male demographics. So, yeah, we have like the alphas, the 20%, and the betas, right? Basically, the 80%. Well, it's pretty freaking simple. The alphas, they get pretty much all of the action. They don't need like a lot of capital. They don't need to accumulate something. They don't really need to build themselves up that much. They are like alphas by default, most of them. Some of them they are not, but then they build themselves up into becoming like alphas when they become in their 30s, but they're not like natural born alpha males, right? Sort of the top tier, the really good looking ones, because you are really born with the way you look, especially when you're a man, because you can't really change your looks. You can't inject the freaking Botox. You can't cover your face with makeup, right? And you can't increase your height. I mean, you can probably wear boots with like high heels. I mean, there are some brands that sell those, but it's not really going to be helpful. You will probably just fall down, So the alphas, they get their action when they're younger, most of them. And then the betas, while the alphas are playing around with most of the women, then the betas, they have the chance to rise up. Then in their 30s, they finally build themselves up. And then in 30s, because they got some capital, they worked on themselves. Some of them, even if they don't like become full-on alphas, they still start to get a lot of more action, right? Because in the 20s, it was like 20% of the chats who were sleeping with 80% of women. But now the graphic starts to change. In their 30s, the former betas, they change their status, most of them. Well, maybe not most, but a lot of them, and at least they get to the point of like becoming slightly more than average, and they still get a lot more traction than they used to. And that's the time where pretty much when times comes to marriage, right? Now they are in the age when they need to get married. Because, like, generally speaking, most people they marry nowadays, if they didn't do it in their 20s, they will do it in their 30s. After 30s, it doesn't really work that way, okay? So in your 30s, it's probably like the latest you can do it. So, yeah, you see the problem here. The ones who didn't have no action, they start to have some action, some traction of action. But at the same time, they have reached the age where they want to get married. That's the problem here. This is the point where morality starts to sort of play a huge factor, because they marry, and most of them, they marry women who were having lots of action with the chats in their 20s. So it turns out that most women, they had way more sexual life, way more sexual partners, much more body count than your average dude. And then that dude, he just marries one of these chicks, and it turns out he has less experience than that chick. And at the same time, he also has to pay for everything. Well, at least he must be way more sort of advanced, way more forward than his spouse, his bride, when it comes to money making. So he's better because he was building himself up to that point, and she was just sleeping around when she was kind of, yeah, she wasn't that active as he was. But now she, when they marry, she wants to control him. She doesn't want him to cheat. That's where women come up with this idea that, oh, men are pigs. That's all they do. They just cheat on their wives. Or they're so nasty. They're pigs. They're gross. But the problem, once again, as I said, on average, women have more action before getting married than average men do. And that in and of itself, that implies that men in marriage have the right to cheat on their wives, because there must be compensatory justice. I'm sorry, that's the reality of it. You don't want it, then don't sleep around. Be a freaking, okay, maybe you're not a virgin, but don't be sleeping around that much. Don't have like a body count in tens or even hundreds. And also make something out of yourself, so that then you would be evened out with the guy. But because you're not, and he also has to like pay for you and be cautious, and be all of that, that chivalrous, that gentleman. He needs to take care of you and all of this. But he didn't have the game. He didn't really have a lot of action, so he lacks it. He really lacks it. And it's okay if he doesn't cheat. And yeah, he might not be cheating on you. And it's totally fine if he really doesn't want to, if he's just not into it, if maybe he's genuinely not interested in that. Well, then it's on him, right? It's okay. But generally, if he decides he wants to, he has all the rights to do that. The alphas, on the other hand, they don't have the right. They have the opportunities, most of them at least. Some of them, they just degrade themselves into completely like just in becoming like complete losers. They were successful in their 20s, then in their 30s, they just lose the grip, completely degrade themselves and just become bozos. That happens too. Actually, that does happen. Maybe just a few, but that still does happen. So the alphas, they have the opportunities, but they don't have the moral right. While the former betas, now they have more opportunities. Maybe not as many as the alphas, but they still have way more than they did. But now they're married, and it's like their wives. They suddenly start to control their husbands. These wives, they would have the right to control these husbands that now have the right to compensate for the absence of action in the 20s by sleeping around, by having like lovers, right, outside marriage. These wives, they would have the right to be concerned about that and controlling of their husbands if they didn't have the action before getting married, or if they are younger and didn't have that much action. For example, if you are 35, like an ex-beta, and you marry a woman that's like 25, yeah, she's probably didn't have enough time to have slept around that much, and at least she's younger, so that kind of that itself sort of compensates. At least you didn't get like a woman of your age that's, that didn't just sleep around, but also aged up, just aged herself out of the prime basically, and now you have to pick her up when she's in her worst position while you are in your best. So you can, because you're in your best, in your prime now, in your best position, now you have the right to get a woman that is younger. But if you decide not to, then you have like 10, 20 times, multiple times more rights to cheat. Okay? You probably still have some right, even if a woman is younger, especially if she's not like a virgin, or she's like not your financial, not her status is not equal to your status financially, but it's still less. You still have less rights. So that's what it all comes down to. And when women get all angry and all those mana pigs, that's all they do. They just cheat on their wives. Oh my God. I mean, they don't really care about you cheating. That's not even the point, okay? Because once again, there's the Pareto principle, okay? They've settled down with you, most of the guys. If you're on average, it's the likelihood is that she settled down with you. So when you cheat, and because you have the right to, and you have the opportunities, so the both of the factors align. You have the right and the opportunities. You might not think that you have the right, and you might be sort of cautious about it, sort of self-bashing even, but which you shouldn't be. You shouldn't be self-bashing. You have the right. But it's great if you don't cheat. Just get yourself busy with something else. I mean, because life is too short, in my opinion, right? If you're really not into it, why bother yourself? Like, why make yourself, right? Maybe you have like really many hobbies, many interests. You do science. It's totally fine. You don't have to cheat. But if you want, if that's really what concerns you, if you really want, if you just desire that, well then just bear in mind, mark it on your nose that you have the right to. Okay? And the more action your wife had in her past, the more right you have to cheat on her. Okay? And you might think that because your wife becomes like so controlling that she's kind of like scared, she's concerned that she might lose you. I've actually been thinking about it, and honestly, I don't think it's because she's scared to lose you. I think it's because she envies you. She just envies you. Because why? Because she remembers those fun times, but now she's stuck at home with her kids. Now because she's a family woman now. Now she has to do the house chores, and now she's with kids, and it's no fun. But now you get to have fun. Like at your work, you can come home later, and then she will be like, "Oh my God, why did you come home so late?" It's not out of love; it's out of spite because she envies you. You know, I genuinely think that's the main reason. Then there's also another reason is the fear of losing, because you might, if you get a lover like some colleague at work, you might leave your wife. That also happens, right? And I think that's the reason. That's where we get to actually differentiating between like a man just having like play sort of time, like going to hookers, and actually having a love, like a romance, actual romance, and he leaves his wife. That's where the morality becomes sort of blurred, because that's where it becomes like immoral, in my opinion. Because when you leave, you don't just leave your wife, you also leave your kid, but you have to be responsible for your kid. So if you just sleep around, like occasionally, like you have some hookers, some hoes, or you have like a romance, maybe some colleague or someone, and you have established it in your mind that you're not going to actually go that far as to break your marriage, then it's totally fine. Because I'm sorry, once again, you can't be Jesus in a brothel. And then why do you have to be Jesus in a brothel when you actually desire that, right? If you don't, then again, as I already said, then don't. Just have some freaking hobbies. Life is really not only about sex. Sex it's an extremely important factor. Yeah, it's the most important for most men, but there's also it's like a small category of men who generally don't really need that much of it. Like half of all the greatest philosophers and inventors on our planet in history, they were not even married. Okay. So can you say these guys were like losers? Of course not. They were geniuses. They invented stuff. They were thinkers, and they wouldn't have time. So yeah, I mean, that's pretty much all I wanted to say here. And the two reasons why your wives actually are so controlling of you, the two actual reasons, it might be that, yeah, she might love you, but the possibility is extremely slim. I have a friend whose wife actually loves him, and she actually she doesn't really mind him sort of having some occasional flings somewhere, she doesn't really mind that much, because precisely because she's scared to lose him, because she's scared to control him that much, because precisely because she loves him, actually. And you see it when you see how they interact. But when she wants to sort of constantly cock block her husband, most of the time it's out of spite, it's out of envy and fear to lose a provider, not the love of her life, a provider. The love of her life is left back in the 20s when she was a Stacy, running around with those stupid Tyrones and chats. That's where she left it. There. She doesn't really love you. That's what the statistics actually tell us, with all those stupid concepts of, the settling and starter husbands. Yeah, that's basically all I wanted to discuss here. I think I've pretty much covered the whole freaking topic. Yeah, you have the right to cheat. You wouldn't have that if we lived in a decent society. But if we lived in a society where cheating was criminally punished, then children would be safe. They would have like full family. They would have both parents. But it's the women who oppose this. It's not the men. Okay. Well, the alpha man, most of them probably do. However, there's probably some alphas who do realize that they're still vulnerable, because there's a lot of alphas who get cheated on too. I mean, don't get it all. Don't get like it all to the point of just thinking that alphas have it all easy all the time. No, they get cheated on. Their wives also leave them. That happens. Just look at the freaking news. There's so many celebrities, the ultra top freaking top tier guys that get cheated on. And then some of their wives, they cheat with some freaking ex criminals, like thugs, and just some homeless dudes. It gets all crazy. Anyway, guys, subscribe to my channel. This is it for the video, and also like this video, and also visit my shop, grab something for yourself, and support this channel. And I see you in the next videos.